Hello, everyone. Welcome. Good to see you all tonight. We are getting ready for our 77th Pearl of Wisdom. I'm actually on my cell phone, so bear with me. Between my computer and Mynoo's computer last week, we have definitely been challenged, but we appreciate you all coming on board tonight because we have a very exciting and special Pearl of Wisdom. I know I'm excited. This Pearl of Wisdom is about awake or asleep. And I know we've all thought about that probably at some point or another. Tonight, Mynoo is going to join. She's going to share with us the 7 joys and the perils of being either awake or asleep. You know, it's sure to be an amazing journey, as it always is. Mynoo's going to offer her unique vantage point on these 2 options, and you make it your choice. So you'll be able to enjoy the journey, whether you're awake or asleep. So again, our 77th Pearl of Wisdom, we're going to get started right away. Thank you all for coming, is titled Awake or Asleep. And Mynoo, I'm going to turn it over to you as we get started, because I know we have already a full house tonight. And thank you all for joining.
Thank you, Catherine. And yes, hello, everyone. I am here at my home in Dubai, and the family is all here. So I'm actually doing this session from my bedroom. And here we are. I was a bit puzzled with this one, awake or asleep? I mean, clearly you want to be awake. So I thought. But actually, when I engaged with the 7 joys and perils, they can actually apply to both awake and asleep choices. So the first thing is to understand, what does it even mean, to be awake or to be asleep? And it's like we talk about in the wake of something that has occurred, and you heard me say this, pipeline is just over, and we're still in the wake of the pipeline. So the energies are still really strong. So awake, basically, really both of these, awake and asleep, both apply to your presence. And in this awake state, your presence is such that even if you want to take yourself physically away from a particular situation, you leave behind a wake of your presence, and it continues to impact and influence the people, the choices, the decisions that you leave behind. I'm just going to mute everyone, because when you're on your phone, Catherine, it's a little bit difficult to do all of these sort of things. So when you are in the state of being awake, then you are in that presence of your own presence. And it is so powerful that even when you take yourself away from your physically you take yourself away, you leave behind the wake of your presence. Your energy is left behind. So people continue to experience the power that underlies your presence. Now you can be, if you see, sometimes we are present and there is a mood that we are in. And that will have an impact on the wake that gets left behind. So you may be there and then you leave and people are like reeling in, oh my God, what hit us? This is the key thing to understand. Awake or asleep is both applied to us, to the power that we have. And I'm going to share a couple of examples from my own life as I work with myself in this Pearl of Wisdom. Let me talk about asleep in a moment, and then we'll elaborate on these and then go into the 7 joys and perils. A sleep allows you to get into a state of rest so that you can recuperate and leap forward in whatever it is that you are attempting to accomplish. So it was interesting. I always thought, oh, this person is quite awake and this person is asleep. Well, they're actually recuperating, ready to leap forward. Now, they may choose not to leap forward, or they may choose not even being aware that that's what they're doing. That's their choice. But that is what a sleep is, a state of asleep or a state of awake. That's the contrast. And they both really work well together. It literally is like the yin and the yang. Only focusing on being awake, you could actually deplete your own vital life force. You require a sleep as much as you require to be awake, because it is in your sleep that you recuperate to be able to leap forward. So as many of you know that, I come from a very academic and corporate high performance background, and then went on a journey of self-discovery. And I call it my journey of self-liberation and a journey into miracles. And during that time, I felt that as if I woke up for the first time. Now, I woke up for the first time because I had actually disconnected from what it even feels like being present to my own presence. And that's why the waking up was an important experience and a new one for me. And as I learned to be in my own presence, I got to experience the wake of this presence. And then I engaged with the nuances of really knowing when it feels, what it feels like, and when I am actually present to my own presence. And when I'm present to an emotion, or when I'm present to a reaction. I started differentiating between that, what it feels like being present to my own presence, versus something which is really coming from a fractured human disguise space. And I saw that in either case, I am present and it does leave behind a wake that impacts people. And I'm talking about myself. If you were to look back in your own life, you will find that your presence also has a wake, leaves behind a wake that impacts people. Now, there are times, as many of you know, through my times of spiritual awakening, I've learned that I don't need as much sleep as I thought I needed, but I know that I do require rest. And there are times where my guidance is drop everything and sleep. And I couldn't understand why that was. I did it because I chose to follow my guidance. And I know that each time there was a leap forward in terms of whatever it is that I was in the quest of. I've developed a very healthy respect to sleep as a result of that. So both awake and asleep go hand in hand they are actually on the same page. They just happen to be, different, very different experiences. And they go together. They're not even two sides of a coin or anything like that. They literally are, two separate comrades, if you were to look at them as a personality. They're two separate comrades that indeed go together. And sometimes it's time to experience the state of being awake, and other times it's best to go be asleep. So let's look at these 7 joys and perils, and more elaboration on this I will do as I talk about these joys and perils. The first one is adaptable. Both of these, the state of awake, the state of asleep, both of these make you capable of adapting yourself to fit a particular situation. So there you are, wanting to achieve or accomplish something. You've defined a goal, and that's where you're going towards. You can choose to be in a state of awake, in which case, really presence yourself to your presence and look at, this is the goal that I'm going after. What is it that I currently have in place that I can build on? You're very present to that. So when you become present to your presence, it removes the fluff. It literally clears the pathway. So you can be very present. And in that presence, pick out the nuances of what you already have in place. And when you are able to pick out and acknowledge what you already have in place, you can also identify what is missing and essential that is, in fact, yours to do. And what is missing and essential that you require to orchestrate or ask others for their help or support with. Now, sometimes when you're in this space where, you have a goal to accomplish, you've identified what's missing and essential. You've also acknowledged what you already have in place. It is actually time to sleep, to get that leap forward to accomplishing your goal. And it's time to sleep. Now that's the joy. Awake, the state of awake, gets you to experience the presence of your presence. And in that present state, you actually start getting into action, which means a cellular memory of enacting awakeness takes place. When a cellular memory of anything happens, you can always go back to that state very easily. And your presence literally gets you to listen, see, experience, notice, feel what it is that you have, that you require to accomplish a goal, and what it is that is missing and essential that is yours to put in place, what requires to come in from somewhere else. Once you've done that, put it away. It's time to leap forward and sleep. The great thing is that we have actually been given, these experiences. So every day we have an awake time and we have a sleep time. And when I worked with this for myself, I thought, I loved my sleep. I really was more of a late night person, sleeping through the day. And then my son was born, who just chose to wake up at 5:30 in the morning, and that was the end of sleeping through during the daytime. But I still loved my sleep. And I had all sorts of stories that I would make up about why my day wasn't going well because I hadn't slept enough. And I would find all forms of pockets of exhaustion, hidden in my body. I realized it was all a story because when my son was born, something was required. It was required. I needed to be awake in the morning, and I'm required to be awake. I required to be present. And just being present to his needs exhausted me. So I realized even at that time, that it was important for me to be present to my own presence. And that way I was able to really see what it is that he requires. So the awake and asleep, even though I didn't realize, I was actually going from perils to joy in understanding how to work with the two. Remember, it's never about finding balance. Nothing. It's all about finding balance. Balance keeps you out of balance. It literally is like that seesaw. You've got your foot on two sides and you're attempting to balance. And that can be fun for a while, but it can also get exhausting. Nothing gets accomplished. You're just trying to find balance. It's about harmonization. It's about recognizing who are the collaborators, what required to coexist. Awake and asleep are collaborating comrades that create coexistence, and they also require to coexist. And the joys and perils basically is up to you. You can be in a state of joy by having them coexist, or you try and find a balance and you'll be getting exhausted. So the first joy or peril is you find the harmonization of awake and asleep. It makes you infinitely adaptable, capable of fitting into a particular situation as you choose, as opposed to compromising to fit in. Adaptable is a matter of your choice. Compromise is something that you make do. It also is a matter of your choice. It's a depleting one, not an empowering one. The second one is welcoming. When you get into a state of harmonizing, awake and asleep, you actually have the life force, you have the presence, you have the wherewithal to invite others in. Otherwise, it can feel like, anything outside coming in is going to take more of your energy. It's going to be depleting. And when you've been welcoming, because you know what it feels like when you've been somewhere and you've been welcomed wholeheartedly. So if I look at my own life and I look at those times where, I kept using a sleep part, leaping forward towards my goals, it's as if the goals became the personality that people are relating to as opposed to me. I also became quite unempathetic, unable to put myself in other people's shoes because I was just wanting to leap forward to another goal. Everyone was a step towards that. And that got me disconnected from others, but really where it began was a disconnect within myself, disconnected from my own presence. So there was no welcoming of myself. Hence, the awake part. Awake doesn't have to be some mega spiritual thing. It literally is only being awake to presencing your own presence. And it is in that that you leave a wake that touches people, moves people, inspires them. Because you are touched, moved, and inspired by your own presence. Now, with that, you've nourished yourself. You've acknowledged your own worthiness. You have the vitality and the life force flowing. You are in your flow. Now you're ready to sleep and take that leap forward. And in your dream state, so many indigenous communities give great emphasis to dream states. And if you go into a dream state, when you have accomplished this awake state, you are presencing your own presence. And you go into a dream state and you align that dream state entry to a very specific goal that you're after. You literally welcome that leap forward in terms of nuances, in terms of exactly what is yours to do, in terms of stuff that might be coming in the way from your own attachment to ways in which you might have done something before. That starts to dissolve and disappear. When you work with awake and asleep as comrades and be present consciously to these joys and perils, you become welcome into projects, contracts, places, people, opportunities, and you start welcoming, receiving exactly the perfect opportunities that pull you up and get you even closer to what it is that you have chosen to accomplish. It is quite a welcoming experience. Like I was going to live an extraordinary life where all aspects of my life coexist with joy, ease, and grace. And I so wanted to welcome that experience. I didn't know how. And it was presencing my own presence. That became a gift. Initially, I didn't really like the idea of presencing my own presence. It felt so much more entertaining and interesting to always look at things outside of me and use them to enrich myself. But I was always giving my power away. You can enjoy things outside of you because you choose to. And when you are presencing your own presence, what it is that you take from the outside to enjoy, you actually do so by enjoying it in joy. And you are nurtured and nourished as you slide into sleep, and it becomes a leap forward. The third joy or peril that you can work with, asleep or awake in either situation, is adventurous. You become ready to take on daring enterprises and have that wonderful aliveness that can come from that without going into this crazy bull force energy that can knock out your adrenals. Instead, you take on a dare because you choose to. And you enjoy the journey because you are awake, you're in your own presence, constantly nurturing, nourishing, acknowledging that which enriches you. And from time to time, you can pause, sleep, ready to take that leap forward. When you take on awake and asleep as two comrades that go hand in hand and support you on your journey, it really feels like, you wake up every day with, these two fabulous friends. They both give you very different perspectives. We've all had these friends from time to time. They give you very different perspectives. And the amazing thing is, awake and asleep are both action oriented. They're very focused on implementation. They're not intellectual. And whether you like it or not, you will be awake during the day and you will at some point at least attempt to sleep, even if you're not able to sleep. As I was working through this, I was looking at, well, I've received a lot of concerns from people who find it hard to sleep, only because they haven't addressed the awake part yet. And the moment you become present to your own presence, you start operating in this nuance land. You stop spinning because you know in your presence, you can magnetize anything. And not only that, you don't even have to be there because the presence of your presence is so powerful that even when you take yourself physically away, the wake you leave behind continues to mobilize the magnetizing of whatever it is that you require in terms of resources. You are free to leap forward, and you do so as you sleep. So there's one particular person, she's feeling very, very stressed about this not being able to sleep. It's been an issue for her for a few weeks. So it wasn't something that was normal to her, but it had been an issue for her. So we use the awake asleep, joys and perils approach. And as it turned out, there were various situations that had occurred in the past, and all of that went away during COVID times. Now that the world has returned back, some of those habits and concerns returned. And she inadvertently slid into appeasing others. So, whilst she was awake, she really wasn't present to her own presence. She was much more in a space of being concerned about what others would feel or what others would say if she didn't do this or if she didn't do that. So getting more and more disconnected from her own presence. So when she went to sleep, it was an endurance. I have to sleep, and I know I'll have another night of not being able to sleep. So she wakes up and she's exhausted, further disconnected from her own presence. So both the awake and the sleep patterns were being disrupted. And because she would be grumpy in the morning because she hadn't slept, people started avoiding her. So for her, it was like, hello, I'm doing all this for you, and you're starting to avoid me. Got further disconnected from her own presence. So the wake of her, as she stepped physically away from any situation, was, such a relief she's not here. It literally only took us 2 days. The first day really was her truly experiencing the awake part, getting to reconnect to her own presence. getting to acknowledge what that even feels like. When I do something like this, I go into visually, what does it feel like? There you are. You are present. How are you feeling? What sort of words are you using? So she starts to slide into the experience of experiencing her own presence and actually starting to like it. Then I guided her, and this was the day one, right? Then I guided her to proactively presence her own presence. So by that time, because she had engaged with what it feels like, she was able to go into situations, go into conversations, and proactively presence her own presence. Now she experienced the fullness of this awake aspect of her life. Then before she went to bed, I invited her to consider, as she sleeps, where does she wish to leap forward to? Now, before when I'd asked her the question, it was like, I just want to, somehow have more energy during the day. It was literally just that. This time, because she had had many hours of presencing her own presence, she was able to reconnect to what is it that would give her infinite joy. And that's where she would love to leap forward to. So with that declaration to the universe, she went into her dream state. She didn't dream at all. When I spoke to her the next day, and when I speak to her the next day, she has already presenced her presence. And all she's present to is how joyful she felt. Nothing had happened. She just leapt and literally leapt forward to that exuberance that already lies within. And she had the most amazing day. It's day 9 now, and it's been like this every single day. Some relationships dropped away, and particularly there were a couple of people that she called as her friends. And they really enjoyed, wallowing in her own sorrow and were not completely comfortable with experiencing her in the fullness of her presence, but they just fell away by themselves. There was no heartache or anything like that. Several relationships that were deeply impacted previously came back. And it's only been 9 days. The joys and perils. The peril really is ignoring the fact that awake and asleep go together. And it isn't that you do them equally. Sometimes you will want more awake time, just like she actually had much more awake time, because this whole experience of presencing her own presence was such a new thing for her. And it didn't matter that she had such a small window in which she slept deeply. I wasn't such a small, it was 4 hours or something like that, where she had deep sleep. She woke up completely rested and vitalized. So give yourself the opportunity to go on that adventure with awake and asleep. Let them guide you how much of what it is that you require. Give yourself the dares. Here I am presencing my presence. Where do I wish to leap forward to in my sleep today? Go for it. And then experience with presence what has emerged. The fourth joy and peril is kaleidoscopic. Kaleidoscopic. I might not be pronouncing it right, but that's my Indian accent. So kaleidoscopic is really having a complex pattern of colors. It even feels multifaceted. It feels multicolored. And it really does give you tremendous joy. I mean, I love watching a kaleidoscope. One of my favorite gifts as a child was a kaleidoscope. So, when you're awake, presencing your presence, the kind of things that you experience and you see through your kaleidoscope. And here, your kaleidoscope is all about living your life. In this awake state, you are living your life. You're engaged in the act of living. And you're consciously aware of the choices you're making. The kaleidoscopic experience, when you have lived with your own presence and presencing your presence, and then you slide into a state of sleep, you're actually leaping forward by really presencing this state of life. So you've taken your conscious awareness out of the way, creating a clear pathway for you to leap forward. Very essential for lucid dreaming experiences. Those of you who know about it, people use lucid dreaming as a way of bringing into existence that which they desire and dream about. They literally use their dreams to transform their reality. And that starts to happen naturally. Initially, you may experience no dreams at all because your body is like, finally, you're catching up on that sleep. And then your dreams become kaleidoscopic, feel very real. And when you enter the realm of sleep, after having a whole day presencing your presence, the level of clarity of where you wish to leap forward to is so precise that in your dream state, as you're leaping forward, you start seeing all of these complex, wonderful, joyful patterns of colors. But you also start to see very clearly your pathways. I often work like this. If there is an intention that I wish to fulfill and I want to know the pathways, I go into my sleep state, knowing that it's actually a leap forward. And my intention is to wake up being clear about the pathways. I don't need to think any more about it. I just give that order and off I go. I know I'll leap forward in my sleep. The access to do that with absolute clarity is you're awake. So even when I'm going into a state of sleep, I'm in the wake of my own presence. I'm presencing my presence. I'm whole and complete in my source mastery, unequivocally. I am at the source of my life. And what else is there to do but to leap forward? It feels complex and it isn't. You just have to have a go for yourself. First step, understand what your presence feels like. What do you look like when you're really present? If you do any work with animals, dogs or horses, a horse reacts to your presence. If you're not present to your presence, a horse will experience agitation. Because they are in their truth. And in your truth, you are present. So you can use any animals that you might have as a pet as a reflection for you to know that you are truly awake. Get clear on where is it that you wish to leap forward to. And it may just be like this person that I shared about. She just wanted to leap forward to experiencing joy and sharing that joy. And lo and behold, even with 4 hours of sleep, she was able to leap forward to that place. The fifth one is an odd word. I haven't come across a word like that before. It's called ebullient. EBULLIENT, ebullient. And it's really about bubbling with excitement, effervescent, elated, buoyant. I mean, it's spot on. It literally is the bullseye of the joys and perils harmonized in this awake, asleep, yin and yang. So you are bubbly, you're excited, you're effervescent, elated and buoyant, even as you're awake. And as you slide into sleep, because you've made a choice where you are heading, where you would wish to leap forward to, you are ebullient, buoyant, excited, effervescent. There's a lightness of being throughout. There's an experience of wonderment very, very present. You literally have the opportunity to dream new worlds into being for yourself and for others, should you choose that. You get to connect with everything's a matter of your choice. I mean, that was the biggest breakthrough this person had that I worked with recently. She was like, nobody runs my life. I do. What I say goes. Like everything is on tap. And you're the one that turns on the tap or turns it off. You can choose to hemorrhage and therefore create a leak or or if a leak occurs, allow that leak to be repaired or continue that way. It's your choice. Just like when I was running my life, not being present, I was not connected. There was a leak of disconnect to my own presence. And all that was doing was really removing from my system vital life force. All it took, I didn't need to go and do, and I would actually, I would do these, exercises and sometimes, really pump myself up so that I could feel more energized. And it wasn't delivering it because there was this massive hemorrhage of vital life force. That's the peril part. The joy is the ebullience that you experience when you are present in your presence. Like literally every day I wake up with great enthusiasm and excitement. I don't have to be sitting there planning, thinking that much. And I can if I want to. Just simply presencing my own presence puts me in a state of being. And it's about state of being me. And I'm all about miracles, making my heart sing. So presencing my presence, I'm really presencing what's making my heart sing. That's me. And it'll be different for different people, whatever it is. Just know that this harmonization of awake and asleep gives you the ebullient experience unequivocally. The sixth joy or joy and or peril relates to scrupulous. So you become scrupulous, and it's actually quite good to be that from time to time. Careful, quite thorough, extremely attentive to details. I don't skip over anything, actually. I've really learned the joys of nuance. Because that's where I get to know that 0.0001% that is mine to do, to have 100% result. But if you are depleted of vital life force and you haven't quite got into the rhythm of using your sleep to leap forward, it can feel quite exhausting to then be attentive to details. You actually lose your attentiveness to details. So when I look at my life and I look at, okay, living this extraordinary life with joy, ease, and grace omnipresent in all areas of my life, every day, in every way. If I just looked at it as a label, it would be like such a daunting task. So many things I would have to stop doing, let alone so many things I would have to start doing. All those different processes, practices. I mean, it felt overwhelming to begin with because my logical mind went, you have to do all of this stuff. You never worked on yourself. So I did begin doing lots of stuff on myself. And the more I got into the rhythm of the awake, asleep, harmonize, connection, the more I just required to focus on that detail, that nuance, pick out. I mean, initially it was, I did the 80-20 for a long time in my corporate life. So the 20% was easy, but even that was too much. I started going for 2%, and now I'm like 0.0001%. But that comes from having that extreme attention to details in a full spectrum way. I feel what it feels like physically, mentally, emotionally. So if I'm choosing which pathway I'm going to take, I usually feel into it. And we all get a feeling. We all do. Big choices and decisions. Before I act on it, I engage with what's the consequence. And then I feel into the consequence and choose, okay, I like this feeling. I'm going to go with it. I choose that consequence. But even that interruption of action until I have felt the feeling of what the consequence would be has actually transformed my effectiveness. When you engage with awake as presencing your own presence and you become responsible, your own ability to respond enriches because you're aware of the wake that you leave behind. When you step away from a physical situation, you don't churn everything up. People are actually left touched, moved, and inspired. You attempt to work at doing that. It's a lot of hard work. But if you actually use what I'm saying, which is literally connect to what does your presence feel like, and then take the courage to presencing that presence for yourself, you automatically have the impact where people are touched, moved, and inspired. And then you can utilize your sleep time for exactly what it was designed to do, enable you to leap forward. So when you wake up, you are experiencing aliveness. You become so aware of those 2 or 3 key things that you can utilize to transform. Anytime you feel down, you can switch to aliveness, regardless of what is happening. You become aware of that as you utilize your sleep as a leap forward experience. It's pretty amazing, really, pretty amazing. I can see why awake and asleep are, they both come together as a pearl of wisdom. So being scrupulous, being careful, being thorough, extremely attentive to details, you can use it without the awake part where you're not present to your presence, and that is perilous. It will deplete you of your life force so fast. You will really enter the realm of, I have to do this. It has to be done this way. I need to, I should do. So pause before engaging in detail of anything and really just go into looking at your own presence, connecting with presence in your own presence. And then allow nothing to be done other than, that's the leap I wish to achieve. I'm going to go to sleep. Go for it. Enable me to take that leap forward. How cool is that? Literally, all days work, all days play. When you understand this yin and yang of awake and asleep. The 7th, joy and peril, is picturesque. Picturesque, very beautiful, almost like a picture. And you can actually experience a picture perfect lifestyle. I had no idea. One of the things that I had actually declared as a part of my extraordinary life book that I journaled, I had said that, I will, wherever I go, I will always have a room where I can have a beautiful view, even from my bed. Certainly a really beautiful view. And that's exactly what started happening. I'm going to collect a collection of photographs of the last 12 years or so. The rooms with a view that I lived in. It literally just started happening. Anywhere, everywhere, from the mountains of Colorado to Rishikesh to Dubai, where I am, everywhere. And that's very physical, right? Picturesque. When I engage with this, the joy and peril of awake and asleep, this is the one that I love doing, the lay of the land in a full spectrum way. How a picturesque experience, which feels whole and complete, what does that feel like mentally? Emotionally, what emotions does it generate? So when I think about, before going to sleep, my leap forward, I actually describe it in a picturesque way. Because by that time, I'm already presencing my presence, and I describe the leap forward in a picturesque way. What does it look like physically? What sort of thoughts does it generate mentally? What kind of emotions arise? How does it feel when I'm plugged into the spirit of this experience? What kind of connections I'm making with people, the social dynamics that are visible to me? What's the environment that I'm in? That's the leap forward I want. Go ahead. Dream on. And I go to sleep. You can do it just as easily. Now that you know what I'm talking about here. The most important thing is to know awake and asleep are both comrades. They go hand in hand. It's not about balancing awake time and sleep time. It really is about harmonizing the two and proactively working.